Good evening, everybody. Just 1 minute to 6, so just give people time to join us at 6 o'clock, and we'll make a start on our third session. YouTube live events for Oakley Grammar School's Green Tide cohort coming to us in September. Nice to have you all here on such an incredibly hot evening. This evening's session is about safeguarding and preparing for secondary school. So we'll just give people, just tick over to 6 o'clock and then we can make a start. Okay, everybody, questions are already coming through, which is good. Mrs. Townsend, I will probably answer that question for you when we're in the session here. Just welcome to everybody again. I do know we've got Mr. Lee and Mrs. Varley in the background, I think a couple of members of the leadership team as well, and we've also got some of our new tutors that will be joining us in September as well. They seem to get an awful lot out of the last session too, hearing how the school operates. So as we normally do, if you can just put any questions onto the chat bar, I'll pause from time to time to answer them. It was requested last time that we talk about uniform a little bit, which is absolutely fine before we go on to the main section, which is on safeguarding and preparing for secondary school. And I think, so yeah, if you can just bear with us, we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can as we go through. So school uniform, obviously an important part of being at high school, and particularly Oakley Grammar School. That uniform that they do wear does carry an awful lot of weight. It's a very well regarded school, and obviously wearing that badge on their breast pocket does carry an awful lot of weight. That means they're very visible as well, particularly being the only high school in the town, in the area. So we want them to wear that uniform with pride, really. So our two uniform suppliers are in the New Beginnings booklet, and the two new uniform suppliers are Dobson and Robinson, which is on the Grove in Oakley, and then also Wharfdale Uniforms, which is on Carlton New Road in Skipton. Both of them have websites, and you can click on the links from the New Beginnings booklet, and they take straight to their websites. From what I understand from a number of parents that have emailed in recently, they are kind of offering a flexible service for uniform, and I believe where they can, I mean, obviously they may start to open up a little bit more now, but certainly before the shops were allowed to open, they were dropping the uniform off for trial and see if it fits and that sort of thing. So please do use them. Obviously it is important that you use the uniform supplier for certain things, but also what we have tried to do is for trousers and shirts and so on, they don't have to be branded anyway, and we kind of encourage you to get those from where it is most kind of cost effective for you as such. So what I shall do is I'll kind of start from top to bottom and work my way down what the uniform needs to be like. I'll just talk about some of the rules as well. So it's in no particular order other than I'm just starting from the top and working my way down. Haircuts, obviously we've got an awful lot of kind of COVID haircuts at the minute. But where possible, just try and make it as neat and tidy as you can. We don't really do very extreme colours for hair, so natural colours where they can, and also try not to make it too short as well where you can, and that's important. It's just something that we try and make sure that there's some sort of consistency and across haircuts, across the. But personally appreciate that everybody is an individual, but just please try and make it as neat and tidy and not too coloured. I've got some questions coming in already. I'll just see if I can keep going and I'll come back to them if I can. Then with regards to just working my way down, makeup, there is no makeup allowed at all for years 7, 8 and 9. It's kind of one of those privilege of age things, because we do allow year 10 to wear what we call discreet makeup. And I think the reasoning behind that is to make sure that obviously young skin is still growing, and trying not to cover it up with too much chemical as such is the way to go. And it is, year 7, 8 and 9 there's no makeup at all, please. And then earrings, 1 pair of earrings in each lobe of the ear, please, for that. And then the same thing for other jewellery as well. We encourage the students to wear a watch should we want one, but all other jewellery, please leave it at home for 2 reasons really. 1, it can get lost, and 2, we just try and keep that kind of consistent message of that professional outlook as such. And then the blazer is obviously branded blazer. I would encourage you to make sure that you try them on. It is sometimes quite funny for me to see, particularly the boys tend to seem to have enormous blazers. They do still eventually fill into them as they grow. And obviously I do appreciate that's probably the most expensive item of uniform that you would buy. And it does have to have the IGS crest on the blazer pocket, which obviously anything that you get from Dobson, Robinson or Wharfdale will have that. Then a shirt, a white school shirt, again, particularly, and I'll sort of touch on this later on, I would encourage you to get a few of them, obviously, to make sure that they can be rotated around, particularly as they do start to get into their teenage years. They do need to learn to sort of swap their shirt regularly, probably more so than they would do at primary school. And then the tie, again, if you do say that you're into year 7, both Dobson, Robinson and Wharfdale know that the green tie is for year 7, and that tie you will keep all the way through. So eventually, next year you'll keep the green tie, and eventually the green tie will be a year 11 tie in 5 years' time. And they will always be known as the green tie cohort. And then trousers, dark grey, please, for trousers. And the girls' skirts are available as well. I would encourage you to just check carefully with regards to the skirts. There used to be some branded ones, but we've moved away from that now. And I do know both suppliers have got school grey skirts in there. Again, just if you can encourage them not to wear them too short. I fully appreciate all children come in lots of different shapes and sizes, but we do try and make sure that the skirt is not too short. It should be 6 centimetres above the knee is the plan. But I do fully appreciate that all sorts of children come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, but certainly please try not to wear it too short. What the girls tend to do is start rolling the skirt up to make it a little shorter. We discourage them from that, and if they continue to not take our hint on not making their skirt too short, then there are unfortunately negatives that come that way. And the same thing for boys who wear their trousers showing their underwear as well. We try and discourage that. Shoes is next on my list. It is a very hilly and difficult site, so please make sure that you have black leather school shoes. I would encourage them not to have any sort of big high heel or heel on them really, because getting around the site is pretty tricky. Trainers are not allowed, black trainers are not allowed. It must be school shoes, and it is important that they stick to that. If a child for any reason doesn't have any school shoes, then we reserve the right as such to put them in a pair of our school pumps, which normally means that the school shoes come in the next day. So please make sure that you get a really good sturdy pair of school shoes. And then there is a pullover, a school pullover, but it is optional, the pullover. You don't have to have it. There's not many children that do wear the pullover. Some do, some don't. Again, it's a branded item. It's entirely up to you as a family. It is an optional item, that. And then a coat. Again, I would encourage you to get a pretty decent coat for them, because they do have to move from building to building, and the weather seems to be a microclimate in Ilkley, but we seem to get some pretty poor weather sometimes there. And you can wear a coat. All the coats have got to be taken off before they get into the classroom. So they are allowed to wear them in transit as such, and at break times, lunch times, when they're coming in and going home. But please try and encourage them to wear a coat, particularly on cold days and wet days. And then there is also a school hoodie as well, which can be worn as a coat and worn over the top of their blazer. And again, some of the students are choosing to do that. Again, it's a branded item. It's an optional item. You don't need to have that, but it is kind of useful because it's sort of dual purpose with regards to the PE uniform as well. And then with regards to the PE uniform, there's a summer and a winter kit as such. Obviously, when you actually get back in September, there is, we're still kind of we're not quite going into the winter period as such. So they do tend to wear more of a summer kit, because it tends to have that Indian summer in September and October. So you need to have both of them. There's a reversible rugby shirt and so on. And they are branded up with the colours of their band, which we will get to you as soon as we can. I appreciate that, you do need to get hold of these items. So those are there. And again, just the usual kind of PE kit that you will need. You'll see that on the New Beginnings website. There's photographs of children in their PE kit, and there's a few optional extras in there if you want to buy things yourself that have got branded items. But again, we're trying to, where we can, to make this manageable of cost. We fully appreciate that. So please just look carefully at the New Beginnings website, the New Beginnings booklet, and on the website, and the links are to both our uniform suppliers, Dobson Robinson and Wharfdale Uniforms. And the two gentlemen that run those sessions are absolutely brilliant, actually, and you would have been able to meet them should we have been having the uniform supplier, the welcome evening in July. The uniform suppliers would be there, but I do believe, from what I've heard from parents, is that they're very good at trying to mitigate any problems with regards to COVID and delivery and that sort of thing. So please just do give them a call. A couple of questions, and please, I'll just pause there for any uniform questions. So, will they be wearing full uniform in September? Mrs. Townsend, I don't know that just yet. I mean, since we spoke on Tuesday, it does seem like the government have started to think about a full opening in September, which obviously, personally, I'm very delighted about, and I'm sure you are as well. And we're certainly preparing for that. So there's nothing formal come through from the government in any way about what it looks like in September. But if you've been watching the news as I have, they have been easing their views on social distancing in schools. So it does look like, and as I say, we're preparing for that Year 7 will be in September. And as far as I can see, the government moving towards a full reopening, which will obviously, education will be absolutely brilliant for the students and certainly for our new Year 7. As I say, I'm saying that as I sit here now, and rules could change tomorrow, but certainly that is what the message has been, that has started to come through this week about what it will be like in September. Mr. Amy, have you considered the normalisation of mask wearing that may still be needed when the school opens in September? Well, Mr. Amy, we're actually open now, and what we've said to students is, should they want to wear a mask, they're entitled to, and we've said the same thing to our staff. But it's certainly not mandatory to wear a mask in school, and I think we're just following government guidelines on that. There are rumours that the blazers may not be worn in school due to COVID. Have there been any other thoughts on what might plan be for September? I've not heard that rumour, Mr. Lyons. So no, Rumours do run quickly in Ilkley Grammar School, but no one's told me that one. I certainly have not heard of a plan of not having Blazers in September. So I suppose all I would say is make sure you've got one for September, because I've certainly not heard that rumour. What I have heard is making sure that, as we are doing at the minute, our students that are coming in currently are not wearing uniform, and maybe that's where the rumour has come from. But certainly it's not a decision we've made yet. It would be a decision that we would have to make. And I think with all of this that I'm saying at the minute, we would make sure that you're absolutely clear. As I said in all of these sessions, once I'm clear and once we're clear of what's going on in September, we will get the message out to you as soon as possible, as soon as we possibly can. Any more questions about uniform? I mean, all I would say on uniform is, it is an important part of being at a high school. I mean, it's very nice to see the pictures of the young people when they first arrive in September in their uniform, and taking photographs of them on their first day in their uniform, and then actually what they will look like when they actually leave us in year 11 or in year 13 is quite dramatic, actually. So no more questions on uniform. I must have done a good job again. Okay. I mean, I've noticed that the numbers are slightly down this evening. It's probably for two reasons, I would think. One, that the weather is fantastic outside, and the second one, I think this evening's session is, is very much targeted, I suppose, that if you've got a young person coming up to secondary school and it's your first child, your oldest child as such, that's coming to secondary school, I think, that there are some concerns and some worries about them joining high school and what might happen. So I'm the designated safeguarding lead in school, so DSL, so it has to be a member of the leadership team, which is why it's me. I've done the job for, this will be my 12th year coming up, being the member of the leadership team, and my 9th to be the DSL in school. So I'm what's called a named person as well. So we have additional training on safeguarding. It's a 2-3 day training course for us, and we have to keep that updated on a biannual basis. And the safeguarding remit really sits with me. It's a big part of my job that I do in school, and I would be the person that you can contact to discuss things. And I think there is a bigger and wider team than that, though, rather than it just being me. There is a fairly substantial team. There are 5 other named persons in school, the deputy heads, and the head is a named person too. We've all had additional training, and there's also some more of the assistant head teachers as well, and also Mrs. Hepworth, who's our outreach worker, who's a named person. So it's quite a substantial safeguarding team. I mean, obviously we have nearly 1,800, just over 1,800 students on site, and a lot can happen. What I would say, and I want you to hear this clearly really from me, and I say it when we do some information evenings on safeguarding, it's a bit of a mantra of mine. You have the support of the school, and that support of the school is unconditional and without any judgment or prejudice. It's really important that you know that our door is wide open for safeguarding, really, with regards to you coming to come and see how, if something does go wrong, pick up the phone and give us a call. It's pretty likely, in my experience, that we will have dealt with whatever concerns you have before. And even if something does crop up that is unusual, then I know where to go to get help for you. What I do want to say, though, is, and I think this is important, as a parent myself, is it's absolutely, it's not an admission or a sign of weakness on your part if there's something does go wrong, and things will go wrong, possibly go wrong at high school. And I think it's important that you recognise that you can come in and speak to the heads of year, myself, or one of the other named people, and we will listen to you intently, and it will be unconditional support without any judgment on our part, and you will get the absolute support of Ilkley Grammar School. And you're probably sitting there thinking, "Why? What's he really talking about?" But I do know, and I've got experience of where parents have almost thought that, we can't tell the school, what will they think of us, and so on. That's just not the case at all. almost, the named person team and the heads of year are astute at dealing with any safeguarding issues that may arise. And I encourage you to contact us and talk things through with us, because we can help and we will help. And we will, make sure that we try and put things right for you, okay, and the young person that's in the middle of all this. So why are things different when they join secondary school? Well, first of all, as you've probably worked out, they will go from being a little young person who's just left primary school to being quite big when they leave us in year 11 or in year 13. And that growth is not only in their body and their physical appearance, but also in their mind and their spirit and their whole personality, really. If you want the science behind it, it's linked to a fairly substantial dopamine spike in their brain. It comes from ancient times, really, when it was the time for young people to separate from their parents, and that's what their brain is changing for. They're very reliant on you now, but by the time they get to year 11 or year 13, they will be less reliant on you physically. Probably financially, they're probably still very reliant on you, but actually in their mind, body, and their spirit, they will be less reliant on you. And that challenge of that teenage dopamine spike is something that we need to work together on. And clearly, every adult that's here has been through those teenage years. And I think if you reflect on your own time at school and your own development, you'll probably admit it was a time of exploration for you. It was a time of that development itself. It was time of that awareness of your own personality, of your sexuality, and you're developing your life experiences as you move through secondary school. And that will happen to all of our year sixes that are joining us. And it can be a scary time for them as well. We put an awful lot of time into citizenship type lessons, PBT lessons that I was talking to last time, where we can reflect as a group. There's also the science as well, where they talk about the biology of those changes that will happen to them. But what we try and do, as we've said to them, is if there is, as I said to you previously, if there is a problem, if there is something that you need us to know, then your head of year, Mr. Lehman, is that person that you can go to with Missy Farley and make sure that you get that unconditional and without judgment support that they need as young people as well. And sometimes that can be away from you as well, because it is important that we are able to work with the young people without going directly to you. And I think you've got to trust the system in a way. What I would say is, if there is ever any risk to the child in any way, then we would always contact you. And I think that is the way that the school has to operate. But as educators as well, we do need the students to be able to confide in us and allow us to listen to them. But we also have, additionally to that, is our counselling team, which are called Place to Be. Our Place to Be counselling team provide additional support for students that need it. And they're there to help students through what can be life events, so a loss of a close relative, or it can be that they've got anxiety or depression or something that is diagnosable as such. And Lorraine Dawson, who is our school project manager for Place to Be, actually works full-time on site. And the way the system works for mental health purposes is that if a child has a mental issue that could become a mental health problem, then the heads of year fill in a referral form that goes to Lorraine. And in years 7 to 11, Lorraine would always contact their parent as well and have a conversation with you, because you need to give consent for Lorraine to work on a therapeutic level with the young person. And Lorraine does confidential counselling, and I think I'm really clear to the heads of year and the named person team that we're all very good listeners, but there is something different between a listener and a counsellor, and that counselling is on a therapeutic level. And there's the place to be team see about 140 or 150 students a year. And it's not just Lorraine that does that, because behind Lorraine is a suite of counsellors that are available every lesson effectively. And those counsellors can do short, medium or long-term counselling sessions with the young people. And again, it's very important that that safety net is there, because what we want to try and do is make sure we're giving the children the skills, giving young people the skills to manage their physical development, their awareness of self, and also their mental health as well as we move through school. And some students need a very short term, some need to stay on the place to be booked for some time. What I am very confident about, Lorraine is a fully trained counsellor, and she has all of the training and qualifications that you need, and she's very available as well to parents, and she does do work with parents as well, where you've got a sticky problem at home, shall we say. She does actually give guidance to parents as well about how to help manage that situation. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there for a second. Has anyone got any questions about how the safeguarding system works? Okay, I shall move on. One of the, I've wrote down a few things here that I just think are important to kind of think through and talk about, really. The reason about what we've been talking about quite a lot in the previous things about building the tutor groups and trying to get those right. And despite our very best efforts, for whatever reason, children's relationships form and reform, storm and norm, if you want to look at it like that as well, and start to get, and obviously do change themselves. And that's our message from when they join us, as I was saying before, about making sure that, you know, you recognise that the person that you could be your best friend for the rest of your life is in this room and you don't know who they are. It's important that that the children recognise about trying to get on with people, because the best friend that they're bringing from primary school may not be the person that they end up being ultimately incredibly friendly with by the time they get to year 8 or even towards the end of year 7, and certainly maybe not in year 11, the 6th one. Relationships change, and also within that, fallouts happen as well. And again, with regards to fallouts, you know, children do fall out at school. And again, the heads of year team are astute at trying to patch up differences and deal with those things. And we wouldn't really, you know, we do try and work with the children themselves and not always rush to parents to say, look, they've had a bit of a fallout. So we will try and patch things together. That said, I'm fully aware that fallouts can become more complex, longer and protracted. And then you start thinking about the word bullying, I suppose. And bullying is not a loaded term. It's very real bullying. And we work on a few provisos that it's intentional, it's sustained. And those where you know the nastiness is directed at someone for all sorts of reasons. We track it very, very closely in school. We do have anti-bullying ambassadors as a group of year 10s that have led the way on this, and they act and try and help as peer educators, really. And also we try and stamp on bullying as fast as we possibly can. And we've got a suite of things we can do. It can go everything from getting the children together to resolve an issue, ultimately right up to excluding someone if they really didn't get the message, and everything in between. And there's a tiered approach to bullying. We try where we can to make sure that we work with the victim, but also the perpetrator as well, to try and prevent them from doing it in the future. Because in the end, these people are all young people, and our duty is to try and educate them as well. That said, if that balance of power is very much one way, then we do need to step in. Again, I would encourage you to let us know about things that might be happening. And you can get that feeling off your own child. I can certainly feel it off my own child at home when something's happened at school. And I would encourage you to talk to them about it, and then again, ring into school and let us know. The bullying in school, we track it on a number of different levels. So there's physical bullying, verbal bullying, cyberbullying, which I'll talk about in a second, homophobic and transphobic bullying, and then indirect bullying, which covers all of the other types of bullying, like bullying from exclusion. So they're the markers that come from the Anti-Bullying Alliance, and we track those through school. And I can't stand here and say that there's no bullying in Ilkley Grammar School, but all I will say, and I say to a lot of young people, it really does sicken me when people are being bullied, and they have to remember that I'm stood right next to them when it's happening, and we will resolve it for them. And that's our ultimate mandate on that. And if people don't get the message from a polite warning, then things will step up, and do step up quite quickly for them. One thing that we do have ultimately in our arsenal is when bullying really gets out of hand, or it's happening primarily out of school. We do have what are called Safer Schools police officers, and again, that's something that a primary school would never have. But we pay the part of the wages of 2 full-time PCs, PC Grant and PC Beck. One comes in on a Wednesday, one comes in on a Friday, and they actually work with our children and can act as that additional kind of drive to say, hang on, some of this is getting out of hand. And that just not just for bullying, but for other reasons as well. They're there to help and support us, and they're a full warrant card PC, so they are able to use the full weight of the law should they need to. Again, very rare for them to have to do that, but it is there and available for them. Okay, and then just to sort of go into relationships and fallouts, I think where it spills into for me is e-safety and around the phone. The school iPad is pretty well monitored, and we're actually getting, I will get the details to you. I was watching a launch of it a few days ago, and I'll get the details to you, but the iPad is pretty well monitored by school systems. But what isn't, our domain as such is obviously the phone, and it's my experience that a lot of fallouts and a lot of things that go wrong actually go wrong on the phone rather than on the school iPad, because the students know that we can look over their shoulder and take their iPad and have a look at it should we want to, and we can do that with the phone as well. It's just that we have to kind of prove that there is a real need, because obviously it's their property and they have to have prejudiced that good order of the school, really, which again from time to time we have to do. And so what I would encourage you as parents to, and I've learned this over a lot of time, is really start those conversations about e-safety. We reinforce that absolutely. Vicky Brides, who's the head of computing, does a big suite of lessons as they get to school on e-safety and cyberbullying, and we go right through things like just making sure your passwords are secure, but also the idea being that, and I do an assembly with them, that people aren't always who they think they are. There is a real drive for young people at the minute, and we can't stop it now, of gathering as many friends as they can on their social media websites, apps. It's changed over the years. When I first started doing this, Facebook was the biggest problem. It'd be interesting for you to know, but the average age of a Facebook user, I think, is 52. So young people have very much moved away from Facebook, and they've moved into other apps. There's all sorts of ones that have happened over time. The most recent one that seemed to be the one of choice is Snapchat, but there are others. And then TikTok seems to have come onto our radar a little bit more now. And again, there are people who mean to do harm to children who infiltrate those things. So I would encourage you at all times to make sure you're having conversations with your young people about, who is that? Do you know them? Where do you know them from? Because there is a real danger in e-safety that the people that do prey on children for whatever reason actually do it, and they're very, very good at it, and they're very, very convincing. And having those talks at home now of thinking about what you would do and getting that security that you absolutely love your children, and if anything does happen, you want them to come to you, even if they've perceived to have done something wrong themselves, or they're being encouraged or coerced by someone who's in a position of power. Then please have those conversations with them earlier. The earlier you have those, the more reinforced they are, the better. We have the same conversations with them at school. I would always like, no matter what's happened, I'd like a child to be able to come to us and say, look, this has happened to me and I need some support with it. And again, where we need to, we have the support of the Safer Schools officers who can seize phones and also act on any inappropriate behaviour on anyone's phone, and you know that's part of their work as well. What I would encourage you to do is there's a number of websites. One of them is called Think You Know. It's a government website. It's linked to what's called CEOP. You probably remember the click CEOP button for yourself. So just really try and keep up to speed with those things. There's some really fantastic stuff on there. Think You Know, it's all one word, think you and then know. Have a look on there. There's lots of stuff online. The NSPCC have a lot of important information for parents as well. And as we do at school, I'm the e-safety officer, so if there is an issue, then give me a call. I try to keep up to speed with everything that happens with the new language that the young people bring in. As I said, I'd never heard of Snapchat 6 years ago. Now it's kind of part of language. Never heard of streaks, never heard of TikTok, and so on. So the world is a very fast changing place. And just to monitor their devices as well. And I know if someone are listening to me here now, they won't like that. But by monitor, I just mean take care to try and listen into conversations. Think about what's being said. If something doesn't sound right, then it maybe isn't right, and just be that tenacious parent. Again, you can always come and talk to us about that. And the issue is with the internet. I've got an analogy about the internet really, and it's about, we all thinking about wanting our children to swim. We all know that swimming pools are dangerous places, but the only way you can learn to swim in a swimming pool is in a swimming pool. And what you do to make that as safe as possible is that you put lifeguards on the outside, and that makes the swimming pool a safer place. And the analogy of the internet is we're trying to teach our children to kind of swim in the internet. We know it's incredibly useful and incredibly powerful. How would I ever have done a presentation like this without it? But it's also a potentially dangerous place as well. Now, the only bad thing about my analogy there is, whereas you have really good swimmers on the at the side of the pool to help someone if they get out of the depth as such, in the internet, sometimes the people that are in the pool, the young people, are better swimmers than the adults that are on the outside trying to look in. So it's important that you recognize that we do have skills, we do have ways of working this through with them. So if you ever feel like something's not right, give us a call and we'll try and do what we can to support that as well. And that's that e-safety message that goes through. It's one of the reasons that we try and limit their use on their mobile phones. One, to get them away from a bit of screen time and get them actually talking together, which is, it seems to be a skill that seems to be more and more lost in modern society. Just next time you're on a bus or a train or on a plane or anything, or stood anywhere, have a look how many people are actually not on their phone. It always surprises me how many adults preach, get off your phone, and then they're just as bad themselves. And I probably better hold up my hand to say that that's me as too. That's my section on e-safety. Has anyone got any questions about e-safety and what we can do to help things? I've got a message here. Someone would like to know when we find out what tutor group she's in and which band. Mr. Davis, it's almost done. What's going to happen, as I said in the first meeting, is where we can, we're going to go into primary schools. It'll probably be next week or the week after. Sorry, not back end of next week or the week after. We'll get in there and we will let them know. They'll bring a letter home as well, let them know what tutor group they're in. What I have done already, and I'm starting to get them together, all of next year's tutors have done a little welcome message, which we'll stitch together, as a thing, so they can actually see their tutor giving a quick, short sort of welcome and hello to them. So that will be very, very soon. If you're not in one of the schools that we can get to, then we'll get a letter out to you as soon as we possibly can. The timetable is pretty much done now, so we should be able to start getting that out to you as soon as we possibly can. You wouldn't normally find out until the 8th of July, so we are still a little bit ahead of time. So we will get it out to you as soon as we possibly can, obviously for uniform purposes and also to sort it out. Normally we would just tell them on the day that they arrive on their welcome day, and then you in the evening. But we appreciate we need to try and get that in a slightly different way. So Mr. Lehman and Mrs. Varley are going to go to the primary schools and let people know there what tutor group you're in. Okay. Will you have lessons on e-safety? Yes, you'll have about 4 lessons. Your first 4 or 5 computing lessons with Miss Brides and the ICT computing team will be on e-safety. So yeah, it was a little bit off piece, Mr. Davis, but it's fine. It's not scripted this in any way, so that's what I'm here for, to answer questions. Okay. Couple of other things to talk about, probably a little bit more sort of hard hitting as well, and certainly not something I would expect to happen in year 7 and 8, but that I did say this is about kind of preparing for secondary school, is that exploration of self, that development, and that the sampling phase that people go through, you know, parties, relationships start to form. It's very interesting actually, and you know, the young people don't always believe me, but when you go to a year 6 play court, most of the time the boys are playing with the boys and the girls are playing with the girls. That kind of lasts for a little bit of time at high school, but it doesn't last for very long. And suddenly what you start to see is the genders starting to mix, and then relationships starting to form. And as I said, that develops in the time that they come through high school. And obviously that normality in relationship and exploration of self is something that we try and manage where we can, try and work with the young people and the expectations of them. And I suppose the same thing with regards to the more dangerous things, I suppose, but drink, drugs, crime, exploitation. Again, we really work closely with the young people as they're growing. There's a fairly big citizenship and the PBT program to look at those skills and life skills that you need to develop to be able to manage your own life work as you start to grow, and the distractions that there could be and opportunities that there could be as you go through life, and what damage that can do to you if you choose poorly, I suppose. So again, we try and educate with regards to that. And going back to my first point really is if there is a problem in those areas, give us a call. Again, it's no judgment on you in any way as a parent, and I've huge experience of dealing with family issues such as that, and so it's important that you let us know and give us a chance to help you. As then, I'm not really want to dwell on it because I know there's some young people listening in here, but I think it's a natural thing that does happen at high school because of their development from being a very young child really to being a young adult when they leave us. And if they leave us in year 13, I mean, some of them are almost 19 by the time they leave us. So, it is important that we recognise that change, which goes back to why we do things with regards to that privilege of age, going back to the makeup issue before. We try and make sure that the students don't wear makeup in years 7 to 9. We give a little bit of room in years 10 and 11, and then more room in year 12 and 13. Same thing with the uniform in year 12 and 13. Obviously, they wear business dress, but it's their choice, and they don't have to wear the school uniform as such. So there are privilege of age things, and it's the same thing with regards to schools organised. Year 7 don't have their own. They have their own court, but they don't have their own sort of personal indoor space. If it is pouring down, we bring them inside. But as they get through, there's a year 8 area that's got a little bit of undercroft space, and year 9 and 10 are in the new cafe, and then 11 are in their own cafe area. So there's lots of things that happen, and you can't have everything all at the same time. Okay, so I mean, I'm going to sort of pause really there. Again, I've talked for just over 40 minutes, so I mean, has anybody got any questions at all for me? As I said, we've got a meeting again I've got an event on Monday, and hopefully we might have a few more details about reopening and so on. So hopefully we can wait till Monday. I've done that's a bit more about learning the iPad, how that works, but also I've left a bit of space for kind of any other business in case anything crops up for them. So any questions, anybody? I must have done a good job again. It is a big part of my job. So, you know, that safeguarding lead job comes with a lot of responsibility, but I want you to know I'm here to help you, as are the rest of the team are. So just remember what I said here. Just pick up the phone and ask us. You will get unconditional, without judgment support from all of the staff that are in the pastorate system. Okay, any questions, anybody? I'm quite happy to let you all go and enjoy the sun. What's left of it? Still swelteringly hot here in Cookridge, so. Okay, any questions about uniform? All okay with that? Right, okay, well listen, I think we'll bring it to a close there, that one. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, but for any last minute questions, but I shall see you on Monday, same time, 6 o'clock, Monday, for learning the iPad and any other business that's on there. Restrictions on iPads. It's got a mobile device manager on it. It's a new one that's just coming up soon. We hope it has a lot more functionality. I need to, I've not quite seen all of the functionality yet because it's a very new system that we're bringing in. But when they're in school, certainly the firewall is pretty robust. When they're at home on your Wi-Fi, it's obviously your security settings. But this new mobile device manager does give us additional functionality, a bit like what some apps have already, where you have the ability to be able to shut it off at 8 o'clock, for example, and restrict things on the iPad using our system as well. So if you can just bear with me on the detail of that, but we've always had a pretty strong system in school, but we've managed to extend that to the iPad when it's at home as well. So if you bear with us on that, I'll make sure that that's there. Is there any restriction in particular that you were concerned about? I will make sure I get some a bit more detail about the, it's called Securely, the app, the mobile device manager. I'll make sure I get a bit more detail about that if I can for Monday, and if not, then I'll do a special session on it to make sure you know what it's going to be. But the detail of it will come out once we've got it installed in the school servers. Okay, just in general, yeah. I mean, what we do try and do with the iPad is we try and make sure they know that it's a learning device in the first instance. So we do have, we knock Messenger off, sorry, iMessage off it, and one or two other things, so they can get used to using it as a learning device. Okay. Right, any more questions? Right, thank you all. I'll see you on Monday for learning the iPad and any other business that may have cropped up in that time. Okay. Thank you all. Enjoy the evening.